Hey everybody, Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com, doing our weekly analysis and initial thoughts on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but tie against the Cleveland Browns, a 21-21 end result for Week 1. And, I got to be honest, I thought this game would be close. I did not feel like this was going to be a Steelers win and a runaway for multiple reasons. One, the Steelers, the lack of reps in the preseason. I think Cleveland, I don't know this absolutely, but I believe that they got more preseason reps. I know Tyrod Taylor played a ton in the preseason, and the starters just played more often. So for one, there's that factor. The Steelers definitely had some rust to shake off, more so than Cleveland. Two, the Browns are just a better, more talented team with a good offensive coordinator addition in Todd Haley. And then three, the obvious factor, the weather factor, that I think was going to, coming into this game, I thought would help tamp the score down and keep things close and competitive. But, bottom line is, it's another version, it's another recap of Steelers beating Steelers. Very rarely over the last couple of years have the Steelers just flat out lost the game, where the opponent was the better team, they had the better game plan, they had the better execution, and it just was, you kind of throw your hands up and say, hey, they were the better team today. And a vast majority, not all, obviously, but a vast majority of these losses, you're pointing the finger at yourself and saying, what were the mistakes that we, the Steelers, made to create the end result, and that's exactly what happened today. Now, hats off to Cleveland. Like I said, they're a talented team. They're going to be so much better of a team this year than last year. They're going to win not just one game, but they're going to win multiple games and be competitive in several more. So again, credit to them for capitalizing and fighting through. I don't want to take away really anything from them. But if you're Pittsburgh, just don't turn the ball over 6 times. I mean, we can talk about all the X's and O's and go in the in-depth breakdowns. I love that. I know that many of you guys listening love that as well. But bottom line is just don't turn the ball over 6 times, and the Steelers win that game. That's it. Not that hard. Not too complicated. Not too deep. Not too X's and O's. You don't have to be Bill Walsh to figure out that if you are -5 in the turnover battle, your odds of winning go way down. And the fact that Steelers tied today is a minor miracle in itself. And the fact that they had a 42-yard field goal to win it and be in that position, even though it didn't convert, is almost a minor miracle in itself. So that starts with Ben. I get the weather. I get you can talk about Russ not playing the preseason enough, although I don't think that's the excuse I would look towards. But Ben has the benefit of a really strong run game. James Conner goes off for a $132 or whatever the number was, somewhere around there, 4.4 yards per carry and 2 touchdowns for James Conner. A defense that played legitimately well. Now, there were some issues individually in a couple areas, but on the whole, you hold a team to 21 points in an overtime game when your offense turns the ball over 6 times. You did an excellent job. Browns only got 7 points off turnover. So you get excellent defense on the whole. You get a strong run game on the whole. All Ben has to do is just not screw it up. And to be fair to him, obviously not all of those interceptions were his fault. The one through Jesse James' hands clearly is not on Ben. There was the appearance of some miscommunication between Ben and AB on, I think, the second interception. You can debate whose fault that is. It's more often the receiver than quarterback, but I don't know exactly who's to blame there. And some of the strip sack fumbles, you can blame some of the offensive tackle play. I think some of it's on them, some of it's on Ben for not feeling the rush as well, or not getting the ball out as quickly as possible. But even just the turnovers aside, just watching Ben, he was really bad. I mean, there's no getting around it. His accuracy was poor, the decision making was poor, and then obviously you couple that and the being responsible for 5 of the 6 turnovers. So all Ben has to do is just not turn the ball over. I know it's a wet, rainy game, but again, you had all the elements in place of how you win those wet, rainy games. A strong run game, a strong defense, 7 sacks on the opposing quarterback. That's a recipe for success. So all Ben has to do is just not screw it up, make 1 or 2 plays, and you walk away with a victory, even if it is ugly. You take the ugly victory, but that didn't happen. So that's the frustrating part. You see Road Ben again. I wrote about that Sunday for Steelers Depot. You get the appearance of Road Ben. We're at home at Heinz Field. Ben looks great. On the road, he looks worse than average. And I know that, obviously, really any quarterback in the league is going to look worse on the road than they are at home. But for Ben, it's even more pronounced, and I can't explain or identify the reason why. So that's, where a large part of this is going to start. And for the rest of the offense, yes, James Conner can't fumble that ball. There was clearly some backfield penetration. I don't know exactly who's to blame there, but you could have better ball security than that. But I mean, Conner played really well. You have to give him a whole lot of credit, for I think totaling over 190 total yards, being a great check down option out of the backfield, and running hard, running decisive, and getting those 2 touchdowns. So I thought he played really well. The fumble aside, even though you can't necessarily just separate that, but thought he did a nice job. And so there's a train. As soon as I do this video, of course, a train pops up, so I apologize for that. But so that's why I was getting off track, because I wasn't sure if there was a train coming or not. But for the rest of the offense, again, like I said, it was a ball control. I think the line as a run blocking unit did well. Some of the power runs, both Connor's touchdowns came off of power. Foster and DeCastro pulling. And the pass protection was a little bit shakier. I thought that they played pretty well overall, again, especially on the interior. Some of the calls were definitely a little ticky-tack. But again, it just, I don't want to go this position by position, but I'm just going broadly for the offense. You turn the ball over 6 times, and you're going to have a bad time, and that's super frustrating and super unfortunate. Defensively, you got to really, give a ton of credit to them. It wasn't perfect, and there's certainly some big gripes I have. Some of the dumb penalties that help breathe new life into Cleveland that set them up for their first touchdown when they were backed up, I think, inside their own 5. You got a holding on Hargrave, you get 2 penalties on Burns, and then things kind of fell apart there. Results in the first points of the day for the Browns. But again, you turn the ball over 6 times, the defense only allows 7 points off of 6 turnovers, and that touchdown came with the ball at the 1-yard line at the Steelers' 1-yard line. It's hard to be upset about that. It's hard to be upset about 7 sacks. TJ Watt had a heck of a day. 4 sacks. Now, one was a kind of running Taylor out of bounds, which still counts as a sack, but regardless, it's a fantastic day. He was, to me, the best player on the field, whether that's offense or defense. Setting the edge, appeared to block off the field goal in overtime that would have given Cleveland the win in the final seconds. And again, 4 sacks, which is something that hasn't been done since 2001 when Joey Porter did it. It's a phenomenal start to the season, and you're looking at a guy that obviously he's almost halfway there right now, but a guy that almost certainly will hit double-digit sacks and hopefully maybe even get into that 12 to 15 range. How fantastic would that be? So, a really good play from him. Again, I think just as a whole, defensively, they played well. Again, you had some issues, Artie Burns with the consistency and the mental mistakes. That's always been the big thing for him. Losing his cool, taking his helmet off, which he did last year. You just have to cut that stuff out. Jarvis Landry's definitely an instigator type, but you got to be the bigger man. You got to understand the big picture and not get lost in that moment where you do dumb things and you get penalized for it. Because even if Landry's instigating, which he probably was, they're always going to get the retaliator. And that's what happened on the play there when those two got tangled up. But again, defensively, I thought they did a good job. Cleveland was, struggling on 3rd down. I forget what the exact numbers were. The only issue I had, or the biggest issue I should say I had with the defense, was the quarterback containment. Just too often, even when they were sending some 5- and 6-man pressures, Taylor was able to break the pocket, and they just weren't either spying or they weren't spacing correctly. Their rush lane integrity had problems. You look at Taylor's touchdown, I think the 20 or 22-yard touchdown over left side that gave Cleveland their first touchdown of the day. That was a broken play in terms of the containment. Guys getting their spacing wrong and letting Taylor free use his legs, because he certainly was not winning with his arm today. Almost everything was underneath. He was inaccurate. He completed barely a third of his passes. It was the legs that helped extend plays, convert 3rd downs, get in the end zone. That's what really hurt the Steelers. So missed opportunity there, and I've always felt in the last couple of years, even this preseason against the Packers, the quarterback containment and the rush lane and discipline has been a huge problem. Now you go back to week 1 last year against Cleveland, it was excellent, and you get 7 sacks. This year you get 7 sacks, but it was a problem, and it let the quarterback play better than to what his stats should have been. Taylor should have been kept in the pocket, made him beat you with his arm. If he does, that's great, but odds are unlikely he would do that. So that was the only super frustrating part today from the defense. But again, there's not much blame to go for this defense. It's on the offense for not doing their job, putting the defense in repeated tough positions and That's the reason why this game resulted in a tie. Special teams, I'll wrap this thing up really quickly with special teams. Obviously, Chris Boswell missing that 42-yarder is unfortunate. Again, you understand the weather conditions. Not that you excuse it entirely, but you understand the spot that he's in. That's not a great spot to be in. Now, personally, I didn't have a huge problem with the play calling to set up that 42-yarder. Had the Steelers run it 3 straight times, and it would have been like a 47-yard field goal, I would have had an issue with that. But on that third down, they went empty. They ran a couple screens. They get, I think, 5 or 6 yards that makes that a 42-yarder. I mean, you could say take a shot. You could say do something slightly different, but it wasn't uber conservative. There wasn't an empty set on third down when you're in field goal range. So there's an inherent risk in that, and I thought it was an executed, a good play call. It was executed well. It put the Steelers in a much more manageable field goal than had it been, say, 49 yards out. It just didn't convert. Jordan Berry, obviously very tough, and again, you understand the weather conditions. It's not fun for any special teamer, but just too many ugly punts. He's got to have a really good game against the Chiefs next week. He'll be at home, hopefully. I'm sure it won't be the driving rain and wind that it was this week, so he's got to bounce back for sure. Ryan Switzer, really good to see Ryan Switzer, as advertised when the Steelers traded with Oakland to acquire him. A guy that's square under every punt and every kick. He has a great feel of being able to track the football, get square, and then immediately get upfield. There's no wasted movement. There's no hesitation. There's no indecisiveness in his game, and he's clearly got the ability to make guys miss, that has the lateral mobility to create plays in space. So that's certainly a good sign. Give the Steelers a really defined kick and punt returner, which I'm not sure when the last time they had a true kick and punt returner was who did both. It might be, because AB hasn't done kicks, it might be Allen Rossum back in 07 when they acquired him. I think he did kicks and punts. Not 100% sure on that. He did kicks for sure. I think he did some punt work as well. So it's nice to be able to have that one guy who can do both and then do it at a pretty high level, and it certainly was impressive today. So Steelers end in the tie. They are 0-1. They'll take on the Chiefs at home next week. I forget if that's a 1 o'clock game or not. I don't know if I have it pulled up. I don't think I do, but so you look to rebound against them. Obviously, you're facing a really talented team, a high-octane offense. I don't know their exact score today. I believe that they won. I know Patrick Mahomes threw for 4 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill was a big playmaker at I think a long punt return and a long touchdown pass as well. So that's always a guy to be worried about. You have Kareem Hunt. You have some playmakers defensively. Getting some more consistent play from their linebackers, adding guys like Reggie Ragland last year. So really tough task. Disappointing game today. I'll leave it. I'll leave it with this. For Cleveland, this one feels like a win, even though it's a tie, because you're able to rally back, because you are Cleveland, because you've been searching so hard for a victory, and you've dealt with so many losses. Haven't won since November of 2016, I think they said, and obviously did not win a game last year. This one feels like a win to you. For the Steelers, this totally feels like a loss. Yes, it is a tie in record, but it's a game that you absolutely should have won, both on paper and both in situation, up 14 going into the fourth quarter. So there is really never comfort provided in a tie for any team, but in this situation, even especially, it absolutely feels like a loss, and it is a very difficult way to start the year. But I'm curious to get your thoughts and feelings on this game, where the issues lie, how this team can get better, how this team can rebound next week against the Kansas City Chiefs. So leave your comments whether you're listening on YouTube, Steelers Depot, or following me on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.